But what about those two jerks?
Those two jerks are taking up 100% of my time from now on, so just have patience, my friend. I'm just getting things rolling. When I'm finished with that kid, he'll be begging me to be his teacher. And you know what he's gonna learn from me? Pain in every part of his body and fear in every part of his mind. And here's the kicker. He's gonna thank me for it.
What about the old man?
Him I heard through the kid. Johnny, by the time that little twerp steps into the ring to defend his title, I'm going to have him thinking he's invincible. And then he's going to find out what pain and fear really mean. Right in front of 1,000 people.
Welcome to No Mercy, a Cobra Kai Kickback. I'm Jacob Burrows. And I'm so Miyagi-Do that I'm currently eating sushi, vegetarian, homemade sushi no less. And man, if that doesn't mean that I'm balanced, I don't know what the heck is.
Wow, that's a great one. Well, my name is Jim Scampoli. I represent Cobra Kai because my deep, dark secret is that I recently purchased some bonsai tree seeds, and I'm very excited about trying to grow and nurture them to life.
You know what else could use some growing and some nurturing to come to life? This film. We're talking about Karate Kid Part 3. It's really bad, Jim. Yes. But,
like, I'll say this, though. Like, I can't argue that it's not bad. But it has this charm, I want to say. It has this. I mean, again, I said this last time, but this is again, for the person with no frame of reference of what the Karate Kid is, and you just tell them there's this movie in the 80s called The Karate Kid. This is more in line what you would expect. This is what Karate Kid Part 1 should have been. And oh my God, Jacob, you were speaking of villains when watching Karate Kid Part 2. Oh, I long for the days of the villain of Karate Kid Part 2 when here we are in Karate Kid Part 3.
Yeah, I honestly, I think it makes you reminisce about the days of the Karate Kid. That's it, no parts, just the first one, because what it got so right is the balance between the dojos and the characters involved, where that's kind of messed up in Part 2, and in Part 3, it is just all over the place. I cannot, this is the most mustache twirling villain I have ever seen. And I don't like it. I didn't like it very much. I didn't like this one.
Well, I liked it in that bad movie sense.
Sure.
I enjoy because in a weird way, Terry, I can't help but marvel at what's happening with Terry Silver. I mean, it's 1989 because what do we start? It was 84 was the first one.
Yeah.
We check in 86 with Karate Kid Part 2. So now here we are in 1989. And I mean, I don't know if I'm giving the writer, Robert Mark Kamen, he did the other two, obviously, as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm giving him too much credit, but I almost feel like he's being dragged kicking and screaming back to the Karate Kid franchise. And maybe that's why it's coming off the way things are. Because he's like, oh my God, I don't want to do another one of these. Jesus. But I don't know. Terry Silver, he has this charm, this kind of, it's the end of the 80s. We're on the cusp of the 90s. And this is like the death knell of the 80s in a weird way. And he represents everything about that. And I just they don't fully explain. I mean, they explain enough of what's going on. It's like Kreese's good friend from Vietnam, but he's a billionaire. I mean, I'm sure even at the time he wasn't thought of as a billionaire. He probably thought of as more as a millionaire, but he'd be the billionaire now. The weird thing about this mustache twirling insane villain is he would be right at home in 2020 because this is the type of villains we want now because rich people are so evil, which I'm not even being sarcastic. I mean, they're evil, but I love that he has the line that's 10 years ago, you could just be dumping nuclear waste wherever you want. No one even cared. But today, I'm getting indicted every month. But he enjoys it. And he's excited to open up new Cobra Kai dojos. He's also, when you think of it in the meta sense, or I guess not even that meta, you don't have to step out too much outside the story. But the idea that this wealthy businessman and this other Vietnam vet are conspiring to take down this college kid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane. And like, so apparently Kreese was supposed to be the main villain originally. Probably that's what the writer envisioned. And then there was some scheduling conflicts, and they were like, ah, shit, we need a different character. So that's how they invented Terry Silver.
I don't
Great name.
even know if that's what it is. I think the kernel for the idea, in my mind, at least what I think he was trying to do, is he's like, how do I get Daniel to be Cobra Kai? He's like, I think the idea here is, okay, we want, and typically this is what would be if it was like planned as a trilogy, the part 2 would be Daniel, rejecting Miyagi, and, what's the biggest rejection he can do? And it's like, okay, he'll be Cobra Kai, but he doesn't want to fully, or I don't want to say he doesn't want to fully commit to it, but he wants it to be somewhat plausible. I mean, not plausible in all the other characters, but at least plausible in the Daniel and Miyagi relationship, where he doesn't want it to be destroyed. But like, what's a way that Daniel would reject Miyagi's karate and try Cobra Kai?
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing that this film does for the Cobra Kai, mythos, if you will, is this fully explains why Daniel in Cobra Kai would think that Cobra Kai is Daniel in Cobra Kai the series would think that Cobra Kai is evil, because I don't think Karate Kid Part 1 is enough for the way Daniel reacts in Cobra Kai the series. But I think if you put this into play, it makes more sense the way Daniel's like, no, there's no good to come out of Cobra Kai. It's nothing but bad and evil or whatever. So I'll give this movie that.
It's also excellent. There's some good flashback fodder in there. Like, there's a couple of scenes with him and Miyagi that I don't know if they've been in Cobra Kai yet, but it's like, oh, that's a nice scene, and this is a nice scene, and then there's other scenes where they climb the mountain for like a long part of the film. And apparently Jessica Andrews, the actress Robin Lively, was 16 at the time, and Ralph Macchio was 27. So.
Ooh.
His character is 18, but yeah, Ralph Macchio was 27 at the time, so they had to rewrite it because she was originally a love interest, and now they just develop a close friendship, according to Wikipedia. Though I would think they wouldn't even.
I would think they wouldn't even care. And I was actually in my mind, because I didn't look into that, I was like, this is a progressive movie, because they're like, look, we can have Daniel be friends with a girl, and it doesn't have to be romantic. That's I assume they're like, look, we're not going to go down this romance path again. How about he just meets a girl and they're friends? But I guess I was wrong.
Yeah. They had to redo that. So the film starts like every Karate Kid film or piece of media with a recap of the big fight between Johnny Lawrence and Daniel-san. So, and we get the fight between Miyagi and Kreese as well, so that he can later say, make his knuckles bleed. Which, again, that fight, wouldn't you see it coming the second time with the windows of the cars? Like, it's fine. But I feel like he'd see it coming the second time. But he's really down and out, and he's late on his payments and everything, so he goes to see his millionaire living in a weird cement house. Like, it looks like a house from Westworld that this guy lives in. And he's just kicking ass. And I thought at first it was going to be like his student, but no, they were just karate pals, I guess, back in the day.
That's what I thought too, because he seems. I guess he seems a lot younger. I don't know the age of the actor, but I will say I like that we go through the flashbacks, but we stay with Kreese.
Yeah.
And kind of go down this path. And I love that it's like all three these movies are all within a year, basically. All this stuff happens in 1 year. And you have to admit, looking at it in the form of the Cobra Kai series, at least from Daniel's perspective, if this was your 1 year, like your senior year going into college, all this stuff happened. I don't blame him for like always like coming back to that as like the peak of his existence. I do want to call it real quick. I love that in the military. I guess I didn't notice it before, But in Kreese's military pic, like when he's got his like beret and his Vietnam picture, it says karate champ
Yes.
70 to 72.
Sure does.
Captain John Kreese, U.S. Army, but he's just holding his gun and everything. But then for some reason it says 1970 to 72 karate champion.
But yeah, those were his glory days back when he was karate champion in the tournament, I guess, in the Viet Cong.
Yeah. Great.
I do love it as well. Like you mentioned, they're having a conversation. A servant with a suit comes up, like, "Mr. Silva, the plutonium deal," and he's like, "Ah, yes, I must sign the plutonium deal." And like, there's like, back in the day, you could, dump it anywhere. Now everyone's a detective. Just great stuff. Just real shorthand for like, this guy super duper evil, and apparently his business is so self-sustaining that he doesn't have to do anything other than sign this piece of paper at the start, because the rest of the film he's completely dedicated to revenge on this child and old man that he has never met and doesn't know anything about, except they hurt his friend. So you gotta say, he's a good friend, and he sends him to Tahiti as well.
Yes,
this guy's a class act.
And the main like goal is to open up Cobra Kai's on every corner. But I mean, I guess the linchpin of that is winning this title. Yeah. Which I guess we'll see if that works or not. But yeah, it just he even says like, I'm gonna devote 100% of my time to these two guys. It's just an insane, amazing device to get this movie rolling, that this dude is ready. I mean, you got to give credit on one end. If you're ever down and out, you want Terry Silver on your side. Like, you want a guy like that. Okay, actually, no, now I remember what I was going to say. His plan doesn't make sense when you really get into it either, because he doesn't really do anything. I mean, I guess he makes Daniel's fist bleed at that one point, but he also is I mean, I guess he's making him angrier, and it's going against Miyagi, but he's still kind of training him. He's not really doing anything. Like, what was the plan messed up, you think? Was there supposed to be more to this plan? I know I'm jumping ahead.
Well, they got the bad boy of karate in there, and I think he was, he was a big part of the plan, that he wasn't supposed to lose. Little did they know that Daniel-san learned a kata once, and that would scare the bad boy of karate so much that he let himself get thrown out of the tournament by being super kicked.
But I mean, like, when Daniel shows up to stop training, do you think that was the one thing? Like, Terry Silver wasn't done with his plan yet, so that's why they had to kind of tip their hand earlier. I mean, it's a great moment when Kreese jumps out from behind the standee of Kreese.
Yes.
And then, like, the bad boy karate, Mike, whatever, comes out too. So, I mean, they are, I guess, ready in case things do come awry. But I feel like maybe there was supposed to be more to the plan. Or maybe I'm just giving Terry a little bit too much credit. Was this the betrayal the ultimate plan?
Yeah, I guess it was. I would also assume, I don't think they say it, but I will just assume that he's also the one who, like, bought their place to make Miyagi force him to retire, sort of thing. Because at the start there, the whole place is being torn down as Miyagi and Daniel come back home. I guess they're just ripping it down to put something else there.
That's a whole new extra layer I didn't even think of, that Terry was also behind. That actually, I think it works.
He's probably going to put a Cobra Kai dojo there.
I do want to, before that, I love the the transition of he drops Kreese off at the airport and we stay in the shot. And as Kreese goes in the airport, Daniel and Miyagi are just getting back from Okinawa. And it's so close to what we kind of said last time of like, oh yeah, Kumiko got a dance job in Tokyo. They didn't put in that she met like a hot dude or whatever, but it kind of works. Like, she got a dance job. What's she gonna do? Turn it down? Oh, of course not. We're young. I got college. She's got dance. And I mean, the hits don't stop there, because it's very reminiscent of the beginning of Karate Kid 2, where now we have to like bend over backwards to make this movie happen. Yeah. Because his building gets bought. Miyagi loses his job, which never felt like it was a financial thing
No.
for Miyagi, because it was always a surprise he had this nice house. Remember, the postman loved it so much. If anything, he could sell tickets to have people come to check out his backyard.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of this thing of like, oh, what is he going to do now? And we get to this whole thing of how, of course, I guess one thing I admire about the fact that we have to jump through these weird hoops and bend over backwards to make the plot happen is because the respect for the Miyagi character is so true that all this stuff has to happen just for Miyagi to agree. Like, it's similar to him agreeing to allow Daniel to come with him to Okinawa. Although it's still a little flimsy that he would agree to let Daniel sign a lease for a retail location to open up Mr. Miyagi's Little Trees, which is amazing when he comes up with the name of the shop.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll give it credit for, at least again, looking at it in a retrospect of the Cobra Kai series, you're seeing car salesman Daniel here. This is like the seeds of LaRusso Motors, or whatever the fuck it's called,
Yes.
with his car dealership.
That's a good point. Yeah, the bonsai seeds, which will sprout into big, amazing dealerships all over the valley and the Greater Valley area. Yeah, so he has to call his mother, who is who is off with his uncle, who's coughing in a bed. Has a bell, and it's just a 1 minute conversation that's like, oh, it could be months. I'm not going to be in this film at all. And when is Kumiko coming? Nah, she's not coming either. What about Mr. Miyagi's woman? Like, that whole thing, that seemed like a lot more of a connection than Daniel-san and Kumiko anyway. So
Yeah,
I guess no need to mention that, eh? He just fucked off to America again.
Yeah, they don't even bother trying to explain that away with just a line of dialogue.
Wouldn't it make a lot of sense if you were Mr. Miyagi, you make the hard decision to go back to the US because you can't leave your job and like you have so much going on over there. You come back and they're tearing down your house and like you don't need to train your student anymore, and like what makes more sense, to go back to the love of your life or to maybe open a bonsai shop? I guess he went with option B. It's 50-50 really.
I mean, I guess they do have some sort of lip service. I guess he does say something about they had to rebuild the village. But again, I mean, Sato, I think, was pretty juiced up with cash. I don't think Miyagi was dipping into his funds for that. But yeah, you're completely right. With the way this is set up, the logical extension would be to him like, well, I guess, Daniel-san, I've taught you everything I know, and I have nothing here now, and I must go back. But no, I guess just open up Mr. Miyagi's Little Trees.
Yeah, so a lot of great conversations between Silver and Kreese as well, like the one on the phone where he talks about how he's going to hurt him through the kid, and all of this convoluted fucking plan. It's like as convoluted as the concept of the film, how they're going to get it to sort of work. A lot of hoops being jumped through left and right.
Yeah. And Uncle Louie, let's not forget when Uncle Louie starts spazzing out in the background of the shot, just to put over the top like how sick he is. He's like he's geeking with his bell. He's like, get off the phone already. At least in this movie, they do have her pop up for a scene. I don't think Karate Kid Part 2, I think they just mention her. But yeah, the idea is we need to make it make sense that Daniel is living with Mr. Miyagi and they're going to start this bonsai shop. But what you're saying before, there are still some nice moments when it is Daniel and Miyagi. Yeah. Like when he's like makes him his partner. And Daniel's all excited about it. It's hard to really, I don't feel this connection of when Mr. Miyagi's in his shop at the apartments and he's kind of sad looking around, because again, I always thought that was weird smoke and mirrors in the first movie, is that you think he's just some maintenance man that like lives in a hovel at this shitty apartment place, but he actually has this, nice house with all those classic cars and everything up the street.
Yeah, I get you. I'm just a sucker for like, oh no, I will have last look, and you go and you look around and you turn off the lights. Like I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah.
In any case, so I was like, oh man, Mr. Miyagi's finally leaving this place behind that he was in for some scenes there in the first one. Uh, but yeah, there's this. So then Danielson goes and gets like I guess he uses all of his college money for a lease on a store. Like he is an entrepreneur in the making, I suppose. Like you said, because none of this like he's way driving this idea way more than Mr. Miyagi, of course. And it's almost like he's to him, Mr. Miyagi's just the brand, and he's the guy running stuff, even though he isn't that egotistical. It just comes off that way that he's like, yeah, I'll like he's the one who goes and gets the lease. He's the one who gets everything sorted out, and Mr. Miyagi has to sort of reluctantly agree to the whole thing.
And I mean, and again, to go back to his car salesman skills, it's because they're in a shithole, but he's really selling it.
Yeah.
He's making it. He's like, of course you need a little work. He's using his LaRusso charm here. And I don't know if this is just a byproduct of the 80s, but just the idea that an 18-year-old kid can stroll into, a real estate place and get a residential lease for a business with no collateral.
Well, legally he's 27, so
yeah, very true. And I mean, I guess it's almost insinuated that he signs Mr. Miyagi's name, kind of, because I mean he gives him the gift of the lease. It's in like a nice like jewelry box almost. Yeah. And then he's like, what's missing? And he's like, your name next to mine. And it's like, well, when did you sign it? Did Daniel sign your name? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. So Silver brings in the bad boy of karate and gives him two hench people called Snake and Dennis. It's a great combination of names. I'll say the guy I thought was Dennis was Snake, and vice versa. Snake doesn't look as threatening as he should with a name like that. But yeah, the guy negotiates for 50% control of the dojos once they open up. And again, this guy's swimming in money. Well, he's in a bathtub at the time, but he's also swimming in money. And he's like, what the heck? You get 50% ownership of all Cobra Kai stuff moving forward. I guess this gives the villain enough motivation to just endlessly harass Danielson for the rest of the film there for next hour or so until the tournament starts.
Yeah, he's in like a Scarface. He's in a Scarface scene basically because he's having meetings while he's in his bubble bath, which I would never. I mean, I don't care how rich someone is. I don't know if I'm going to be partaking in a meeting while someone's sitting in a bubble bath. But hey, it works out. And you're right. Yeah, that gives him the motivation because he needs to make him sign because it's all part of the business deal. And, Daniel did let it drop while he was showing Miyagi the place. Like, look, there's a pottery place right across the street. This is great. I don't hearing that story that you told me about how they rewrote. It's amazing that they rewrote the scene instead of just recasting the actress. Like, why wouldn't they just, I don't know. I guess she was hot. She was a hot commodity coming off a teen. When was Teen Witch? You know that she's Teen Witch, right?
I guess. Can't say I'm not familiar.
I don't know. Well, my girlfriend knows Teen Witch, and she 89. Oh, damn, it was the same year. She couldn't have been that hot off of Teen Witch yet. They came out at the same time.
She looks like she's in Breakfast Club, but she's not.
It's like Blake Lively's sister, which I didn't know either.
Yes, I getcha.
But they were like, oh no, we need this actress. We'll just rewrite it. So I guess that's fine. I thought they were just progressive and they were like, what are we doing with this rigmarole? Enter a new love interest every time for Daniel. He could just have a female friend and acquaintance.
Well, and I guess she runs the pottery. It's a pottery store across the road that she is just a teenager who runs this place, and she's going to go back to some other town. So that kind of puts a time limit on stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out. I mean, she was basically there because he needed someone to show him how to climb the mountain because they do that. The first thing is he like sees the picture when she's climbing the mountain with her boyfriend and his head's ripped off. I was expecting for the bad boy of karate to be the secret boyfriend because that's how it would have worked. That's how it would have worked now. Is he would have been like, oh, well, who's in this picture? And she would have said, and then when the bad boy karate would show it up, she's like, Mike, what are you doing here?
Yep, that sounds about right. So there's a lot of back and forth on this application for the tournament where everyone wants Daniel-san in the tournament. Daniel kind of wants to defend his title, but Miyagi convinces him that that's not the way to live his life. And there's a lot of hijinks left, right, and center. He finds out about the tree that's on this cliffside, as you mentioned, which is this up until the point. It's about an hour into the film where they climb down to get the tree because the bad guys stole all the trees and fucked up the place. Daniel-san just decides that he's gonna go and get the bonsai tree that looks exactly like the bonsai tree on his gi. That was the inspiration for the whole Miyagi Do design, and he's gonna climb down and get it. It's I just lose a lot of respect for Daniel-san. It's just there's no way he would think that that's the thing to do. And even this character he just met, his new friend, is like,
Yes.
this makes no sense. Don't you think he might be upset if you uproot this tree that he planted here when he came to America? And Daniel said, I know what's best. And another thing as well, you talked about in the first film when Daniel-san had that scene where he talked about Ali with an eye. And he just kind of keeps talking when his mother goes away. He's like, yeah, I'd say she's beautiful, you know. It's just like, yeah, it's a real. And you were like, that's kind of a nice character moment. And I get that. But it's like in this, the interpretation of the character is just like he never stops talking. He would just endlessly talk all the time, which kind of works for when he's selling the place, but he'll just no, and he just keeps talking, and there's endless chatter throughout the whole thing. So you kind of get that instead of a look into what he's actually thinking or feeling or anything.
Yeah. I also had it noted as well of how she's like, what if he tells you to put it back? And then I had like the notes, my quotes are like, he's not going to tell me to put it back. Come on, I know this guy. And I'm like, but wait, you're acting like you don't know Mr. because he's clearly going to tell you to put it back. Yeah. But it does get this nice. I mean, I don't know why rewatching this movie, I expected them not to completely spell it out because I'm like, because of course, you know, Daniel-san, you're like a bonsai tree and you strong roots. And it's like then the tree gets broken and they have to bring it back. But of course, they have to outright tell you that, you know, Daniel, you're much like this tree, much like how E.T. was the flowers that are dying and then he comes back to life. Remember that?
I do remember that. And I think even though all of this is incredibly cheesy, that's the one moment where I was like, strong root.
No, don't get me wrong. I still love it. I wish they didn't quite like have to explain it too much, but I do, because when he's talking, like before they actually outright say you're like the tree when he's telling him that, but when they're talking about the tree, I'm still kind of like, yeah, strong root. That's you, Daniel. Come on, like, or even when Miyagi's like, Daniel-san, you know, when are you gonna like kind of snap out of this, because he knows that he's kind of up to no good or he's kind of going astray. But yeah, it's weird because Daniel didn't have a lot in the second movie, but because they were focusing a bit on Miyagi, so it made more sense. And in a weird way, like this has a lot of Daniel, but it also feels like he doesn't have a lot. Or again, it kind of goes back to pacing stuff like we talked about with the first movie, except that slow pace works. This movie, it's like, yeah, we're hitting on the contract over and over again. And then we finally get it signed. And then it's like, of course, Miyagi's not going to train him. And it, like, again, it feels like it takes a long time to get to this point where Daniel is in Cobra Kai, which I feel like was the whole idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just takes way too long. Like this movie doesn't have the benefit of the first one of everything being so good that you want to hang out in these moments.
Yeah.
You don't really want to hang out in some of the, you kind of see where it's going. And especially the fact that, you know, the Terry thing is a reveal to Daniel, but we know about it the whole time. And I feel like usually you would save that. Like we would be in the audience. We'd also be surprised when Daniel's surprised when Kreese jumps out, you know? But they don't structure it that way. So we're just kind of knowing that all along Daniel's being played for like an hour and 20 minutes of this movie until finally Miyagi decides to train him.
There's just so much convoluted stuff because, like you
Yeah.
said, we get the contract signed and the little natural bonsai tree gets brought back and Miyagi is dealing with that. But then he says he's not, like, he has signed the thing, so he has to compete. So he goes running with Jessica. Jessica. But then, like, so Terry Silver just pulls up in his car and like, hey, fancy seeing you here. You training for the Olympics or what? And he like offers to give him a book. And this is all super convoluted. And then like the next scene, Daniel-san is training at Miyagi's place. And much like the postman in the previous film, the bad boy of karate is just walking in there and picks a fight with him. And this would be fine, except it's like the 8th time they've run into each other already. I'm not excited about the tournament anymore because they've already fought like 5 times. And they get into it there. And then Terry Silver comes and beats up the bad boy of karate. If I was him, I'd be like, dude, what about the deal? And it's like, no, I'm doing a whole convoluted thing. Don't worry. Like, no, you don't know me. Like, it's so confusing. So they fight about it, and he's really like, tells him, get out. If I ever see you on the same street, I won't be so charitable with your health. And he hits him with the book, does the whole thing. And I guess that's to make Daniel so impressed that he'll join Cobra Kai, which, again, doesn't really benefit them because they want him to lose. So he does actually train him in the way of Cobra Kai there for a bit. Again, why that is part of the plan, who knows? Yeah.
And I mean, obviously that was set up, the whole moment where, you know, Terry and Mike, the bad boy of karate. But it's great because Mike comes in from like the front of the house. Yeah. And he comes in the backyard, but then Terry comes in from like the back door somewhere. Like,
oh yeah, they're all just popping in there.
Yeah, so I mean, even though we see that there are these big fences that Daniel painted less than a year ago that go all around the Miyagi estate, there's still very easy ways to just walk in. But they this long convoluted thing of how to get Daniel to trust him. I do want to cut back a little bit. I love when the bullies first show up, when he's showing the girl the place, and then he kicks her in the stomach.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He boots her in the stomach. And I mean, at one point they kind of insinuate that they're going to rape her. Like, when he says like, well, look, at first they're going to murder them. Like when they climb down to get the tree, and then they take the ropes away. They're going to let them drown. Yeah. Then they decide to let them up, but they decide to like almost keep letting them go, and they're going to murder them. But then they get the contract, but then they still, like, they're that evil. Like, they also, give me the tree because I know this is something you care about. It's not even that they're aware that it could be worth a lot of money. They just want to fuck with them. And then they're like, and if you back out, you don't want to know what I'm going to do to you and what we're going to do to her. And it's like, oh, Jesus, they're going there. They're ready for it.
It's pretty dark. It gets pretty dark. And also, I feel like the whole centering in on the sweeping of the leg is literally just because in the first film he's like, sweep the leg. And he's like, sensei. And then here it's like there's a whole act that's about the sweeping of the leg where Daniel learns about it. He goes to ask Mr. Miyagi, who wouldn't see him coming out with a broom. Of course, this is how you sweep. And I at that, in that moment, I can't even tell if Mr. Miyagi's like joking or that's just like what he thought that he meant. It's hard to say. But Daniel's really offended, runs off and joins Cobra Kai.
Yeah, and I going back again, like all this stuff done. At least I'm applying positive intent. Because it is, to me, it's showing that they care so much about the Miyagi character that all this shit has to happen for Miyagi to decide to train Daniel. Because it just seems like usually maybe they'll have like the first 2 things happen, but then Mr. Miyagi be like, all right, I'm going to train you. But, they're that much about that Mr. Miyagi really does believe that karate is not, he doesn't give a shit about belts and titles and the under 18 All Valley Championship. Like, who gives a fuck? But it gets all to this point of finally like, all right, well, now it is about honor and it is about something more than the title, and so let's do it. But then again, I really feel they're like, what if Daniel was Cobra Kai? And like, how would that happen? And they have to go through all this shit.
Yeah, and I will say I do kind of like the structure of what comes after he joins Cobra Kai, where it's 3 different days, he learns 3 different things. And
Yeah.
the first day he sort of hurts his foot, and Mr. Miyagi gives him the new foot powder to help him heal. And then, but like gives him advice, and each day he knows what's happening, and he's sort of trying to guide him gently away from it. But then Daniel gets his hand hurt, his elbow or whatever it is when he's doing the strikes to the middle of the wooden dummy, and then he gets the powder and heals that. But then Mr. Miyagi catches him, and like it escalates nicely as part of this movement, I think. So I kind of like this bit.
No, I agree. Well, again, because when it comes down to them together, I think even in a bad movie like this, it's still good. They still have that chemistry, and it's still there. This movie does kind of confirm that the crane kick is essentially illegal. Yeah. I guess getting back to when we start getting into Johnny's point of view, when we get into the series. And again, what you brought up is great too. Like, it's so murky what the rules are in these tournaments, because yeah, it felt like sweep the leg was like, oh no, is that against the rules? But now it's like, well, no, I'm going to learn a front sweep. But I guess sweep the leg was important because they already hurt his leg, and now they're taking out his other leg because, again, no mercy. But yeah, I wish I knew these rules.
Yeah. These are details we can live with. I do like how Mr. Miyagi knows what's happening. It's happening right under his roof, and he feels the pain of it. There's some great acting of him standing outside Daniel's room and the sliding doors and the shadows, and he feels like, so much pain in this not being right. And it's not until, I suppose, the last day when Daniel totally destroys the dummy, and they go dancing, and he punches some guy on pure instinct. Mr. Silver's there too. He's so evil it can't be a spontaneous thing that happens. He has to pay a guy to go fuck with him so that this can happen, and he wants to be there so he and Daniel can run away together. And I'm like, is he manufacturing like a mentor moment between the two of them? I guess, but it all backfires for him because he's like, wait, I went too far. This is horrible. I need Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, which it to your point, I do think that's the stuff with Miyagi is strong, because it kind of shows that Miyagi's smart enough to know that if he just like bursts in and is like, Daniel-san, your leg, your shoulder, what are you doing? You're crazy. What have I ever taught you? Like, clearly that would just push him away more, and he has the trust in Daniel that he's going to realize that he's going down the wrong path, and he is right. I mean, it takes a little bit longer, I think, than he'd hoped, but it shows again some of the like how good of a teacher he is, that he can even see that in him. And then of course it all comes to a head once Kreese is there and the Bad Boy Karate's there, and they toss him out the door, but then they're like, go get him, bring him back in here. But Miyagi sends the Bad Boy Karate flying through the door instead.
Yeah, and so the scene with Jessica where she's packing is quite good as well, because that comes in between where he goes to her, and like that's where he says out loud these things of like he feels like everyone's written him off, and this is his only way of doing things. And she says, just because I'm upset with you, that doesn't mean I'm not your friend anymore. And like Mr. Miyagi still cares about you, but to be fair, all the stuff we said was very convoluted at the start, like say about his mother disappearing and everything. Like he has pretty much been abandoned. He decided to put his college money into this one thing, and when it crashed, that's all his. Like, he's so invested in it now as well. Mr. Miyagi, he can be all zen about it, but that's probably part of why Daniel goes and gets the tree as well, if we want to rationalize it, that it's like, no, I'm invested in this too now. That's my money that they destroyed, and I want to get it back. And then he messes that up, and he gets to this point where he's like, I've did everything the opposite of what Mr. Miyagi's taught me, and he must have given up on me. And when he goes to him as well, and like talks about that, and they get to how like it's his fault, he did it to himself, And Mr. Miyagi says that everything can heal. It just takes time. And then they get into the talking about the root and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah, all of
I
that
mean,
stuff's pretty good.
even that little tree healed. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I do agree. I think that stuff is good. It is amazing also that Terry Silver is like super evil,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he also, from an outsider's perspective, like he knows what karate's supposed to be, because he says the right things at the beginning of like, well, no, karate's for defense only. So it shows that, because I don't think he just got that from reading a few things in Miyagi's closet.
Yeah.
So I love that there's this thing about how Terry knows the truth about karate, but he just doesn't. He wants to ignore that, but he's going to use it against Daniel. So it's just like an extra layer of villainy, I suppose, because he understands that this is supposed to be like a Zen, body and soul spirit type thing, but he's going to use it for power.
Yeah. And I was kind of scared when he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go and tell him that it's over, and I'm not gonna train with Mr. Silver anymore." And Miyagi's like, "Do you want me to come with you?" And he's like, "No, no point." And I'm like, "Ooh!" And then they gets ganged up on there, and I thought it would be like worse, but then Mr. Miyagi came anyway because he knew something was up, I suppose. And then Mr. Miyagi does tons of fighting in this film.
Yeah,
because he fights Kreese and Mr. Silver. So that's fun, I guess.
but it's great when he gets to come back with the whoa, whoa, give it a little bit back to him. And I forgot to bring up that the kata in this. I mean, I was like an 8-year-old when this movie came out, 7 or 8. So I was still big on Karate Kid especially. So I'm trying to learn kata myself.
Sure.
So I mean, because I recognize, because they bust out some of these moves in Cobra Kai when Daniel's doing Miyagi-Do, because I knew myself as a kid in my room trying to do the like the hands at your side and then going into the stance when he puts his like fist up by his forehead. I'm like, oh, these are classic moves.
Nice. So how do they magically make you win at the end, though? Because I don't understand. Do you know about how that works? Because he just wins at the end there when he does it, though.
I mean, I guess much like the drum, it's like part of doing these things. I guess part of all the way Daniel wins is he completely bewilders his opponent for a second and throws off their game because they have no idea why he's doing a weird thing. It's like, oh my God, he's doing a weird thing right now. Like he's doing the crane pose. He's throwing his fists around. He's like swinging his upper body around like fists. And then in this one, you could go in and start punching him, but he's just looking at you and he's moving his hands around. So you're bewildered. You don't understand what the fuck's going on. It throws you off your game, gives you that much of a second advantage for Daniel to come in and snatch victory away.
Yeah, the bad boy of karate just looks so scared though of this like very basic kata, like you said, like the thing that everyone knows. I think the only scene we skipped over is when they replant the tree, and I do like that Daniel stays a bit late and does a little bow to the tree, much like he does a little bow to Mr. Miyagi in the first one. He's replanting his own center sort of thing. The tree doesn't look real, so that's not great. It looks like a plastic tree, and it is. So, kind of undercuts it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Well, the only thing I could think of is they didn't have HD, so maybe it looked a lot more real back then. But then again, I mean, they were still putting things on film. They still had to have seen it look pretty fake.
Yeah, good point. So we get to the tournament, and this time Daniel only has to fight one fight. They have this genius idea of how to make him feel as much pain as possible, which is to do he fights him. I'm sorry, I just have the film running on the side here, and I got to the bit where is his name Mike, the bad boy of karate?
Yeah, Mike.
He's there, like, Daniel stands on the floor, and Mike is like, "Get on that line, LaRusso. You're nothing. Your slope teacher is nothing. Get up, man. You're no champion. Get up. I own you. I own all you. There's gonna be your karate's shit. You hear me? You're shit." And I'm like, this is so cartoonish. And Tommy Silver's there with his like cravat, and he's super evil, and he holds a speech about how he's gonna change karate forever. There's t-shirts in the crowd, which can we get those Cobra Kai Never Dies t-shirts? That's an aside.
Those are
But
great.
yeah, it's just super cartoonish, this whole ending. So, and it all builds up to him doing a kata and then kicking his ass in sudden death.
But I mean, it is over the top, but you have to admit that when he's saying your karate shit and your teacher's shit, I'm like, don't you fucking dare. Like, don't you ever say that about Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi's not shit. Mr. Miyagi's not a phony.
Yeah, but it's also like this Mike guy has known Daniel LaRusso for like 5 minutes and just beat him up. I don't know why he knows the pressure points are like, you're like, he asked like, where's your Jap teacher now or whatever. He's nothing. You're shit. He's a fake and he didn't teach you anything. Your karate's shit. And it's very specific to like him having his personal growth, almost as if the whole plan that Silver has is actually to make Daniel-san realize what a strong root he has, because that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, I mean, but you also have to admit it's great when Miyagi comes in though, and he's like, Daniel-san, you stay focused, and he does center him and gives him that balance, and he gets him back in there because he's like, he's afraid. I am afraid. I can't do it. I just want to go home. But no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you win. I bet he's gonna win, but.
But yeah, that was the thing. I almost thought this was going to be the one where he doesn't win, where he's like, no, you're just gonna like, stay focused. Don't show them your back. Don't show them that you're afraid, and you're gonna win that way. But no, he just wins the regular way.
Yeah, he just wins. Well, I mean, it wasn't quite regular because he does kata and he just throws him off his game because the bad boy karate's never seen anything like it before. He doesn't know what the hell to do.
Even though Terry Silver's shouting, get the point, and someone says like, he's hallucinating. And yeah, he just gets him. He throws him off to the floor and punches him. And I do like that we have the same referee for all three movies, because the referee guy's there with his big mustache. And again, I just know in that shot when he runs over to Miyagi, like, there's a freeze frame coming. And sure enough, it freeze frames on the both of them just cheering and like pointing at each other.
Watching these movies in a row like this, though, I do love that this one ends with both of them.
Yeah,
I think that's great. And I mean, there was a Karate Kid 4, but it was no Daniel. There's no Daniel there. So I like that this is where this trilogy ends. They're together. And, they're going to put this fighting stuff behind them. And I mean, we're not going to do it next. And we're probably not going to do it for a while. But we're going to have to get into the next Karate Kid, which I've never seen. And I mean, I can't imagine what they're going to do to get Miyagi to start. I assume there's going to be a tournament involved. I mean, I guess we'll see.
I don't know. But it might interest you to know that in 2015, the director, John G. Avildsen, called the film a poor imitation of the first one and, quote, a horrible movie. So at least he's, he directed both of them. He directed this one as well. So I guess he should know. And I think he's right. I think he nailed it.
And yeah, I mean, you were correct. Like you said, I didn't mean to interrupt you before the start, but yeah, John Kreese, Martin Cove's filming schedule was a conflict. I guess I was just giving them more credit on both accounts. I was like, oh, they don't need a romantic interest. They're progressive. Yes. And we want Daniel to be Cobra Kai. I wonder if I guess it still would have been Daniel as Cobra Kai, I assume.
Oh, yeah, they could have got there somehow.
But I don't, I kind of would rather have this third party come in. It makes more sense to lure Daniel away to the darkness of Cobra Kai, but and what it got 5 nominations at the 1989 Golden Raspberry Awards for Worst Picture.
Didn't win any of them.
Screenplay.
Wasn't even bad enough for that.
In a weird way, I'm like amazed that at the time, even in 1989, they were like, "This is bad." I would expect that. Like, I guess it's because you always like to think that people in the older times were stupider or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's like someone in 20 years being like, "Oh, remember when everyone loved fucking what's a bad movie that came out? 2012. Remember 2012? Remember when everyone loved Jumanji?"
Yeah. We're kind of blinded by it. Yeah, so we're thankfully not talking about part 4 anytime soon. We're going to actually talk about Cobra Kai, the thing we're here to talk about. If you want to join the conversation, tell us why we're wrong about part 3, why it's the best Karate Kid film. Why don't you send an email to showswhatyouKnowshow@gmail.com. You can, of course, also go to showswhatyouKnow.com for all of our coverage of other shows. There's also jimandthem.com for Jim's other projects and awesomepedia.org for me. But beyond that, is there anything else we want to say on this one, Jim?
I think there's just one more thing left to say.
Oh, and what would that be?
Strike first!
Strike hard! No mercy! Nailed it.